In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Thanks for joining me at Biblical Round Earther. On this channel, we'll discuss doctrines from the Bible that talk about things like the shape of the earth, and we'll also probably discuss some other things that people are having an issue with nowadays, like gravity, things of that nature. The discussion on the shape of the earth wasn't something I was thinking about myself, but due to seeing and hearing so much about it over the last few years, I decided that maybe it would be good to take a look at flat earth beliefs and how they relate to the Bible. Most things I follow are typically related to Christianity. Although I haven't looked for them myself, the people and videos I've heard talking about the shape of the earth have typically been Christians who believe the Bible teaches of a flat earth. From what I've heard, they often assume anyone who believes in anything to do with science or round earth must be atheists who believe that everything was created from a big bang. I can follow the line of thinking, but I would say this is incorrect. I decided to name this channel Biblical Round Earther because I believe you can believe in the Bible and God and believe that the earth is a round sphere. Even if you don't believe in the Bible or God, but still have questions about the shape of the earth, I believe that there will be information in this series of videos that may help you make a more informed decision about the topic. I've split things into multiple sections, and I'm trying to stick to a few main topics per video, at least at first. Then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm not a scientist, astronomer, scholar, or an artist or animator, but I do hope to have something to offer to this discussion. I think illustrating some of these ideas is helpful, but my illustrations are not great. Hopefully they can adequately share the point of the idea without being distracting. I understand that there may be very different levels of what people think about flat earth ideas. It may be as simple as the earth is flat, and it may be as expansive as space and science aren't real, neither is gravity, along with many other things. I'm presenting topics basically as a response to some of the things I've heard, so there may be differing levels of thoughts on the subjects. I've heard lots of reasons why some people are starting to believe the earth is flat again. I believe it's a round sphere, and I'll explain why. Some of the parts overlap, but I put them in categories to help cover everything. Something may not be mentioned in one spot, but will probably be covered in another area. The order I put them in seem to flow, but it isn't necessarily important. Listen to it all, listen to none, or just the part you want to. I wrote this not as a way to change someone's mind on the subject, but to offer the reasons I believe as I do. Here's a list of the topics I've discussed. Objects in the sky in the Bible. Constellations. Firmament. Throne of God. Ice walls, lights, eclipses, orbits, seasons, satellites, gravity, the works of God, horizon, media, video and audio clips, moon landing, science, trust, biblical assumptions, biblical phrases, no limit to God's creation, and a conclusion. Objects in the sky in the Bible. In the first few chapters of Genesis, we learn of the Lord creating things that pertain to our existence. This account doesn't mention planets, but they are mentioned in 2 Kings 23:5. And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. This verse is about idolatry worship, not about creation. Does that passage mean planets were created by God, since they weren't mentioned in the Genesis creation account? I guess someone could argue no, but that would seem to be giving another source that power. Maybe some people don't believe in the other planets, just Earth. This passage doesn't say anything about their creation, it just mentions them. Does it mean they are a made-up thing? Maybe. but planets are listed with the sun and the moon and the hosts of heaven. But the sun and the moon are not called out by those names in the creation account in Genesis either, just the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. So one could also argue that these were not what was noted there, and they are just man-made ideas. Unless one realizes that everything God has ever created was not listed in Genesis 1 through 3, and everything God has ever done is not written in the Bible. Every animal, plant, and bug was not listed, but I believe God made them. I also believe that His words and His works never cease. The sun and moon, not named by those names, are mentioned because they are obvious. The stars are not identifiable by their individual look without magnification, but by their locations and the forms that they take in the sky, in the form of constellations. There are some things that happen, like shooting stars, and something like the Star of Bethlehem that signified the birth of Jesus Christ, that cause occasional differences to what we see in the night sky. But the stars aren't just randomly out there, moving about however they want, and we can see some differences in color, brightness, etc. Even more differences can be seen with simple telescopes that can be made at home, and even more with powerful telescopes. Even without telescopes, we can see a few different stars or lights in the sky, which have been called planets in our solar system, and they follow a different pattern as well. These can be noted as they move around their orbits in the sky and also follow patterns over long periods of time. If these are just lights hung out there, think some major movies in the last 20 years, then they probably wouldn't move independently of all the other stars, or at least there would be no reasons to. All of the stars, planets, moon, and sun do not follow the same patterns. We see different constellations from different parts of the earth, and they are in a different orientation. Some parts of the earth may see them upside down from other parts. It's also interesting to note that 2 Kings 23:5 in many other Bible versions says constellations, not planets. So I guess what you believe may be dependent on which version you read. Constellations. In Isaiah 13:10 we read, "For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine." Also, with the appropriate shading lenses, like we may have bought for an eclipse in the last few years, I believe it is possible to see Mercury and Venus pass in front of the sun if they are in line. I don't remember which, but I do remember seeing it somewhere probably 5-10 years ago. We don't see the other planets do this, which also helps show the current order shown on solar system charts, at least those between Earth and the Sun. There are biblical references to the sun, the moon, the stars, the constellations, and signs in the heavens. They are often used to describe the glory of different things that attain to us. The Bible gives us an account of man's mortal creation and our earth and our heavens creation and things pertaining to us. We can't assume God was sitting in this endless void until he got tired of being alone, or he decided his angels weren't enough, or any other similar line of thinking, and finally created all things, and that they only pertain to our current existence, or that he stops with us. In Genesis, we learn of God creating our heavens and our earth, but where were they, either God as the Trinity or God as three separate beings, and the angels, if there wasn't an already created heaven? What was the place God resided before he created our heavens and our earth? I could understand why we aren't taught that, because we don't really need to know it for our salvation, but it may come into consideration in these discussions. In Proverbs 8:22-31, we learn about existing with God before his works of old, and before the heavens and earth were created, and being there when they were created. So there must have been a place. There's no limit to what God has, can, or will do. We also learn that Jesus could only do what he had seen the Father do. So that does lend itself to the idea that other things were created before our heavens and our earth. We learn in Hebrews 1:2 that the worlds were created. Hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. So it doesn't appear that we are the only world God has. There's also a differentiation between the worlds and the earth. Jesus, as Jehovah, created our heavens and our earth, and that's why we have a record of that. But it doesn't mean nothing else has been or would be created. That seems to create limits for God. That's where we'll end this video. Join me next time where we'll talk about the firmament, the throne of God, and ice walls. Thanks for watching The Biblical Round Earther.